Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education, and I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting artists with disabilities to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. Today, you'll meet our next guest host, para-athlete and musician, Ella Bouvard. Ella Bouvard is a 22-year-old para-athlete and musician. Ella's main sports are triathalon, wheelchair rugby, and motorsport. Ella plays guitar and sings and gigs regularly. Ella mainly plays music in pubs and at festivals in the summer. Ella has been a full-time wheelchair user for 3.5 years and is a musician for around 2.5 years. They absolutely love finding their feet and learning what it is to be a musician. Welcome, Ella. We are delighted to have you as the next guest host of the Able Voices podcast.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
I'd like to start off by asking us to tell us your story as an artist. How did you get your start as an artist, and how did you get to where you are today?
So growing up, I did a little bit of musical theatre and dance when I was a lot younger, and I then got into horses, and horses took over, and I sort of had to make my mind up to do one or the other, and I went for horses. And then in 2019, I became disabled, and I also lost my pony. So I kind of had a very abrupt end to that part of my life. And I felt a bit lost. I didn't really have a lot to do. At that point, I wasn't doing any parasport, and I was sat around at home quite a lot, sort of trying to find my feet and not really knowing where I wanted my life to go from this point. So when I was at school, I used to sort of, as I say, be into music a little bit. So I thought maybe I'll go back to that. So I Googled and I found a local choir and I joined that and I started singing again. That led to me finding new friends who introduced me to other musicians. And I was in a duo for a little bit, and we managed to do one gig before lockdown hit. And then we got locked away for a couple of years. So in that time period, I thought, why don't I go and get a guitar myself? So I did. I went and bought a guitar. And at this point, the world was sort of opening up a little bit. And yeah, so I got a guitar and I learnt to play and sing at the same time, which is really, really complicated.
Yes,
when you get to it. My brain could not handle that for a while. But yeah, that is sort of how I got into music in a squished down version.
I love it. So you've related this already a bit, but can you talk a little bit about your experiences as a person with a disability and an artist and athlete with a disability?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It's very different. You experience a lot of ableism day to day. It's just part of my life now, and trying to get on top of that is difficult, and trying to sort of teach people that, telling me that I'm getting a speeding ticket in the supermarket is not funny. And all things like that. But more specifically, as a musician, I book gigs where I can't get into the pub. I can't get to the toilet in the pub. I have to get on the floor and scoot along the floor to get to the toilet. But like quite a lot, because over here we're not quite as advanced as the US. I know you guys have the ADA, which is very much this is a law, do it. Whereas over here we have the Equality Act, which has a lot of reasonable adjustment. So a pub can turn around and go, but our building is 600 years old, so we're not changing it.
Wow.
So there's a lot of that. But kind of my way of combating that in a way is that I just book the gig anyway, and I turn up and I do it, and I will, it takes, my mum has to come with me to gigs to get me and the equipment in, or whoever is coming with me, and we will get me in the venue, and I will, go on the floor to the toilet or whatever. And very often that is how you implement change, instead of sitting there and, I don't want to say moaning about it because that sounds bad, but actually for a landlord to see that happen quite often makes change. So there's one venue where I used to go to their jams and their open mics, and I used to support them a lot, but I had to do that to get to the toilet, and they have now put planning application in for a whole new toilet block that's got a disabled toilet. So I've seen in real time how actually me turning up and doing that can implement actual real change. So as difficult as it is, and obviously not everyone is able to do that. I have quite a lot of function. From being an athlete, I'm very strong. I can drag myself along the floor quite easily. I can get myself on and off the toilet. So for someone like me to go and do that, I mean, a lot of the time it really, really shocks landlords, and they are like, I didn't know this was a problem. So yeah, I think that really helps make change in the bigger picture. And that's, I guess, my way of going about making things happen, is just by doing them.
Wow. I want to ask you about your athletic work, but before we go there, um, what you're saying about how, when you find out that a place is not accessible, one pathway is to refuse to go,
Mm-hmm.
right? The other pathway is the one that you're taking, where you're saying, well, too bad. I'm showing up.
Yeah.
I'm going to deal with it. I can deal with it. And this is a way to make that issue
Mm-hmm.
right central in front of people. Because I think people don't realize what something being inaccessible really is.
Yes, I think, yeah, I think you're right there. I think until people actually see it with their own eyes, and a lot of the times, you know, it's until people experience disability within their personal circle that actually it hits them. So if I can bring that to people without, say, it being their own family member, like a lot of my friends now, they'll say, oh, this venue's got like one step in, but the toilet is flat. They're all learning themselves. So yeah, it's making more and more people aware of what needs to be done. But yeah, as you say, definitely until people see it, they quite often don't know. I mean, I don't think I ever knew really until I had to deal with it. I think back to sort of 16-year-old me, would she have known, or 18-year-old, would she have known about access issues? Probably not.
Exactly. I love that this is the path that you've chosen to take, because I think it is literally, you're seeing the results making a difference.
Yeah.
So you're a para athlete. I want to know about you as an athlete and
Oh,
what you're doing.
me as an athlete is very competitive. um, so yeah, I got into triathlon. What is it? 2 years now. Yeah, 2 years ago, I met up with my now coach and just had a go at hand cycling. Thought this is fun. He then made me go swimming and maybe go and do race chair. So I just ended up doing triathlon. um, and yeah, oh, it's amazing. So I just did triathlon for a year, and then so with that, what do I do? So my general sort of week to week split is that Monday I do race chair, and quite often race chair and rugby. Tuesday I swim, Wednesday I'm back on the track, race chair. Thursday I cycle, Friday off, Saturday off, and then Sunday I train in the park very early. That's my typical week. Sometimes it changes here and there. And then yeah, I just race as and when I can. So as well as doing triathlon, I do wheelchair racing on its own. I really like sort of 10K half marathon, that sort of distance. So yeah, I did my first elite wheelchair races last year, which were really good fun. And then yeah, I my friend sent me a link to this adapted track day last year, and she said this looks like something you'd really enjoy, and I said absolutely, let's go. So I went on that, and I sort of made friends with the guy who did it. He invited me to go and play rugby, so I now play rugby with Crawley Jets. But with the track days, I now run their social media. I do the photography, videography, because Johnny's a bit of an old man. He won't mind me saying that. So he's not very good at it. So I took over that side. So I get to go on all the track days, and I get to see people again. I love seeing disabled people do things that they didn't think they could do, because people turn up in the
Yeah.
morning and they see the cars going around and they go, no way. And by the afternoon, they've driven around, they've gone around as a passenger. It's amazing. And then rugby, I just get to bring out my violent side. It's great. So wheelchair rugby is the only full contact wheelchair sport. It's amazing. So good. So yeah, that's me. It's very
Wow.
busy. I'm very busy, but it's great fun.
And then you're gigging on top of that. You are very busy. Um, I love what you said. This one sentence that you said, where you love to see disabled people doing things they never thought they could do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For us, that's arts education.
Yeah.
For you, that's your music and all the athletic stuff that you're doing. It's amazing. It's great.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, so my friend, she's got, I don't actually know how old they are, but she's got 2 young kids, both are disabled, and one of them is just getting into race chair, and I cannot wait to just see him sort of progress. He's about 6, I think. He's the right sort of age to get into it. And I'm like, let's go, because it's going to be so much fun to sort of like help teach him and also learn with him, and yeah, just show him the things that you can do. And just yeah, no, I love it. It's really good fun to, as I say, yeah, see people do what they definitely didn't think they could do. And race cars is definitely, and I said to one of the girls when I was on my first track day, I said, I don't think either of us would be here if we were able-bodied, because I certainly wouldn't pay to go on a track day or have signed up for it, because I wouldn't have thought that would be something I needed to do. And I think that's the same with everything I do. I very much had a path and I would have stuck to it, whereas now I branch out, I do so many things. And I think that is down to being disabled and just seeing that actually life is so precious, and you've just got to do everything that you can do. And yeah, I guess that's kind of my ethos for everything.
I love that. I think a lot of people need to hear that. Thank you. So I know that our listeners are going to be curious about how you learned how to sing, how you learned music. Can you just talk? I hear that there's a bunch of DIY in here, but I want to know more.
Yeah, so yeah, like when I read your question, I thought I don't really have a music education as such. So I, as well as being physically disabled, I'm also autistic, which I don't really talk a lot about anymore, because I think being physically disabled almost takes over in a way. But I really didn't get on with school. I left school when I was 14 and had a really bad few years with like anxiety and panic attacks, and just I wasn't diagnosed autistic then, and we just didn't really know how to deal with it. It just all got too much. But when I was still in school, I used to go up to the music rooms at break and lunch because I didn't want to be around anyone. So I'd take myself off to the music room and I would just play piano and I would sing. And I'd never had any training. I think I had 1 piano lesson at primary school, and I just bashed away and sort of learned how to play piano and would sing, and it was like a really good outlet for me. So when I left school, I sort of left that behind. So I felt like I've kind of gone back to it, but I do still play a bit of piano here and there, but it's not a very practical instrument to play. Hence why I thought I'd get a guitar. And my education for guitar was Ultimate Guitar and YouTube. And I just learned the chord shapes with the little, what do you call them? The little tabs.
Tablature, yes.
Yeah. So I played guitar for a week and then went out busking. I think that probably comes down to my autistic pattern loving brain, in that it all sort of made sense to me very quickly.
Sure.
I think I've always been musically inclined in a way. I can't do music theory. I can't explain what I'm doing. I just know that I'm doing it, which probably sounds crazy. But yeah, that's sort of how I educated myself. I did have some vocal lessons
I love
actually,
it.
because
I
I
love it.
thought
I love what you said.
I did have some vocal lessons for a while, because I thought if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right.
Mm.
I was a bit scared of damaging my voice, which to be fair, I probably have done a few times. I don't warm up. I go to a gig and I drink some alcohol and then I play, sing. It's not great. But yeah, I just wanted to learn, because I think I have, without sounding too boasty, I have quite a powerful voice, but I didn't really know what to do with the power. So it was trying to find how to sometimes make it softer. And all my friends go to me, they're like, you don't ever use your head voice. And I'm like, no, I don't. So it was just sort of learning to play around with it. So yeah, I did have a few vocal lessons, but apart from that.
I love that. And as far as I'm concerned, being able to explain something and knowing the theory, ultimately, I mean, that's useful for certain things, but when you play a gig and you make music, what's going to grab people is not, wow, she really knows how to explain things. It's going to be about the music, right? So I think that's great.
One
It's
thing
all
that I
about doing it.
always hear from people is they go like, oh, like I can really feel the emotion. And I'm like, I'm the least emotional person ever. But if you're feeling what you kind of grasp as my emotion, then you know, you feel what you want to feel, but it makes me laugh every time because they're like, oh, I can really feel the emotion. I'm like, I promise you, I have a stone cold heart. I'm just slightly dead inside.
Oh my goodness.
So it does make me laugh. That's like a compliment I get all the time, and I'm like, thank you very much.
It's interesting. Can you talk a little bit about what you're working on now? You're gigging now. Are you writing stuff? Are you working on covers? What are you working on?
Yeah, so it is just mostly gigs, getting things booked in for this year. I write every now and then. I don't my issue with writing a song is that I don't like people to know how I'm feeling. And I
So you
haven't quite
do have
worked
emotions.
You're like, haha, I cracked it. And I feel I do have something to say, but I almost feel like I don't have anything to say when it comes to songwriting in a way, which I don't know. I don't think I've managed to tap into that yet. And I think I have to remember that I'm baby when it comes to music. So everyone that is around me that is my age has been doing music since they were yay high. And their mum or their dad put a guitar in their hand when they were 3. So I think I would like to write, but I'm such a perfectionist, and so nothing is ever good enough. So that process of a song not being good is probably where I would stop instead of waiting it out and making it into something better. But yeah, I think I probably will try and write at some point, and maybe write with someone that knows what they're doing. But yeah, that is where I'm at for now. I'd
Sure.
quite like to run another open mic. I was running open mics and managing a venue, but sadly, post COVID, they've lost all their funds. But I was really enjoying that, and really enjoying booking musicians and sort of looking at that side of the industry. I don't think I'd want to do it full time, but just managing one small venue is good fun. I quite like that side of music as well.
Cool. Hopefully you can get into that business somewhere else. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice do you have for a young artist or a young athlete with a disability?
I'd say just get out there and do it as much as you can. You know, obviously, again, as I was saying earlier, my kind of barriers to access aren't the same as everyone. No one's going to have the same. Yeah, I guess no one's barriers to access is going to be the same. Some people, you know, if you were a power chair user, you might not be able to do what I do. If you know, something as simple as you have a recurring skin problem, you might not be able to just go on the floor to go to the toilet. It sounds like a simple thing, maybe as an able-bodied person, but you know, there's sort of more to it than that. But yeah, as much as you can, get out and do it, and just, you know, I quite like to show the industry that we exist, because I think people are always very shocked when they see me, and not necessarily in a bad way, but they're like, I haven't seen a wheelchair user play music before. And the fact that I think our voices need to be heard, literally and figuratively.
Yes.
So yeah, I was going to go back to the fact that our voices need to be heard, and people need to know that we exist. Because I think, like for me, trying to find people to interview, I'm like, where are the disabled musicians? And I mean, I don't think there's too many of us, but I also think there's probably more of us than anyone is letting on to.
So I want to thank you, Ella, for the time you spent with us today. We are really looking forward to the next episode where you will be our guest host. Thanks very much.
Very exciting. Thank you very much for having me. It's good fun.
Able Voices is a production of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez del Campo. The intro music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education. If you would like to learn more about our work, find us online at berklee.edu/BIAAE or email us at BIAAE@berklee, that's LEE.edu.